price.
Recording is on.
Welcome to the weekly DXdao call. This week we will be doing a recap of the latest happenings in the DAO. And yeah, we'll usually start with Omen, so I'll let Geronimo give that update.
Yeah, we are in the process of releasing the newest version, which includes the DXdao support in scalar markets. The reason why we didn't release the new version yet is because Claros found a bug, fixed it, and now they're still in the process of testing the bridge to mainnet from DXdao, and that
I think we lost Geronimo, right? That's not me.
Yeah.
I saw he went gray. Maybe we could come back to him later, I guess. Yes. Martin, do you want to talk about Mesa? I guess you can't talk because he's at a party. Maybe Nico can give the Mesa update.
Yeah, sure. So what basically happened in the last few days on Mesa is that Adam, who is currently his trial period, started on the front end. So there are some first commits that are basically building the Mesa front end for the easy auction. I guess he will be sharing something in the next few days as well with the community where we can see something. Then there was a start on the smart contracts, which we might use in the midterm. So those smart contracts are more like an approach where we could actually use multiple sales mechanisms. So nothing for the MVP, but there's some work happening on there. And we also had discussions with Bertie, who is an UI UX designer who might join the Mesa team to build the MVP and also in the future some of the UI UX components. And we hope that we have some news by beginning of next week if he will be joining us. Yeah.
Great. Yep, so development underway there. Geronimo, I don't know if your Wi-Fi is back on. You could pick up where you left off. We just did Mesa while you cut out.
So where did I disconnect it?
You had started to talk about Claros having issues with DXdao.
Right.
I think that's the last thing I remember.
Right. So we're waiting, and once Henrik von Claros is giving the go and sharing the deployed contracts, we need to update the subgraph and then finalize the version, and then we're good to go with the release. The good thing with the delayment by Claros is that we included a lot of fixes for DXdao. Primarily, Omen is using like a really nice tool which is called the Gnosis Safe Proxy Kit, which allows us to, which is a smart contract wallet for the user, and it's completely behind the hood. So any Omen user is actually having a smart contract wallet, but they don't know it. And it's a very powerful tool because we can do a lot of things for the user which will improve the user experience dramatically. And like one thing, for example, is that on DXdao, people can actually use DXdao, the native token, and it interacting with like Omen markets without caring about wrapping or unwrapping. And that's actually a huge UX improvement, which we are like one of the few who are fixing that major issue. And that's actually like really cool. And we had like some bugs with that, and we fixed all of it. So we feel like really a good position for the DXdao release now. and that's on the development side. Then the API 3 partnership was ratified by the DXdao, which means at some point API 3 will install an XDAI infrastructure for their Oracle service, which we will then integrate into the XDAI Omen product. And then like this is actually like really great because it's the second Oracle provider which will launch on Omen, and Omen should be like the most generic prediction market platform out there, which means we want to have a lot of Oracle providers, we want to have a lot of arbitration services there, and we want to have like a variety of trading venues launching on Omen. And yeah, that's from the Oracle side, from API 3. And Gnosis put out a proposal for like a long-term partnership with the DXdao. And there's like a hot discussion going on DAO Talk. So if everyone is interested, please comment. That's it.
DAO Talk gets spicy every once in a while, but yes, yeah, I mean, it's cool to see. Obviously, Gnosis has done a lot of the work, laying the groundwork for Omen with the conditional tokens framework and the grant that they had given Protofire kind of early on. And so, yeah, obviously it's their wheelhouse. And I think, like, yeah, when I looked at the proposal, it just was lacking a lot of detail as to what they kind of saw themselves doing in terms of their role with Omen. So from the latest comments on the thread, it seems like they're actually working on some more details. So hopefully by like the biz dev call on Monday, we'll have a little more to chew on there. Well, we'll see though, they might take a little more time.
Oh, another important thing I actually totally forgot. The Omen Guild is actually working on a roadmap for Q1 this year, which will include a lot of things and like a general direction where Omen is going, especially with like L2s launching primarily Arbitrum, and like where we are gonna progress on the XDAI product. So yeah, expect a roadmap in the coming days to be put out on DAO Talk in order like to discuss where Omen should be heading.
That's awesome. And also a good reminder that next week at the same time, we'll be doing the resource coordination, but we're actually planning to kind of review each product's 6-month roadmap and allow some time for questions from anybody on the call, just in terms of, what those roadmaps are like. And then, we'll also be using those plans to kind of more formalize the budget and put everything in context. Is there any questions on Omen?
Just on the Oracle with API 3, like how difficult is it to integrate other oracles, and like how much should we be thinking about that? I think I agree it's like a generic place for people to come, but I guess like when you create a market, would you have the opportunity to like select an oracle, or like how do you kind of should we be going after other oracles? Like what are you kind of thinking about that? Is it unique to XDAI too?
I don't expect that API 3 specifically will just be focusing on XDAI, but like I totally expect they will also like provide their service on mainnet, which I don't think Omen will put complete focus on going forward. Like I think our focus should be to transition for the long term into XDAI and Arbitrum at the same time. That's a great question. The market creation process will need to change in a way, because like I expect that we will need to we will need to find a better way of allowing users to create markets. Looking at how Augur did it, like Augur did a lot of great things. One of them was that they have this schemes. So, and that's something I think where the Omen community can put a lot of effort in, like providing schemata for specific market types. Like one example would be like the simple question about like what price will Ether be at a specific date, and then we would have like a UI scheme specifically just for like market prices, for example, and then you can actually like pick API 3 as an Oracle provider, and then even like decide, do you want to have like an aggregated price from a variety of exchanges, or do you want to pick exactly one exchange? I think the market creation process will need to change to be future-proof for like a multi Oracle world for Omen, and that's like a bigger transition which will need to happen anyway.
Cool.
Yeah, because I suppose in theory, like further down the line, there could be integrations with other Oracle providers, right?
Yeah, and also just thinking about the Arbitrum angle, whether that's presumably need. I mean, obviously we need to talk about the Claros component there, but maybe that's needing a if API 3 would be doing that, or wherever I guess Omen goes, we need to make sure that there are oracles along with it.
Yeah, the API 3 first integration like test is important to see how this whole thing works, because right now we know when market settles, like if there's a market based on a price, like we know that the current process would be very hard for someone to manipulate that price, right? But the minute you count on like a very quick oracle that like is a price feed, whether you can see what that price feed is before the market settles, and then whether that price feed can be manipulated in some way, like at the time just before like the market is ending, is still an unknown. And so
yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of oracles that are used for like liquidations that I think are pretty robust, and most of the oracles out there are like primarily built for like price movements, and so I just like in seeing Omen, we have like the Claros arbitration process that I know like kind of takes a long time, and then I see like the liquidation process for loans or other things and how quickly that is. And so I'm wondering like how we can maybe shorten that using some of the same things then. And obviously like prices, I guess, can be manipulated, but some of these oracles are being used for large amounts already.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see as it starts, I guess. Well, the one thing is API 3 Oracle's not, we don't know if that's being used anywhere yet. So, even like a Uniswap Oracle, which is based on like an average over like a period of time, like that, the question is, can you see the price of that Oracle prior to it happening, right? So like an hour before the time of the Oracle price is needed, what is that price? If you can't see that price, that's a problem for trading markets. So can you see the price all along the time, every second along the way, in order until you get to the end of the market? Like that's important, actually.
Yeah, I know like for Maker, they have this, right? They have like what their Oracle, and they even like, and I don't know if they announce it or just like Mariano or Nanex Cool announces like the Oracle will, like the prices just moved. Oracle will show this in like an hour or something.
Yeah.
And they kind of have that. And so, Maker, and I think Gnosis is providing a light feed to Maker. And I know this is just kind of the beginning, but just just thinking about it with API 3 and scalar markets and XDAI, like I think the market for markets, Omen markets, is like going to grow considerably. So I'm just like, as we start thinking about that, I think we should, be thinking about some of how the other oracles are used now. Because Omen is like basically anything that uses an oracle now, like whether it's like option protocol or like lending protocols, like basically like Omen can like almost produce like derivatives of that in a way, like as long as it has the right oracle. So I just think it's like actually like a much more like flexible functional platform. So almost the sky's the limit on all of those things. Obviously it's like whether Omen and a prediction markets are like the best way to structure that, but I think there's like a whole bunch of opportunities coming up.
Yeah, and the cool thing with API 3 is that that we will start with BTC price and ETH price at the beginning, just to like get the crypto community to playing around with it, and then we actually also like including sport markets, which just need like those oracles. They don't need to like it's just a one-time event, and yeah, so we're actually exploring this the usage of Oracle provide an Oracle service where you constantly need to like send the price in, but for sports it's just like a one-time request to the API 3 Oracle, and then the service should like tell the contract once what happened, and that's it. So yeah, I think those both of those type of oracles are important, and there will be like markets which are actually incentivized by API 3, so people can play around with a trade on it. And the good thing is we actually like battle test the integration on XDAI.
And for context here, the way this works on mainnet at the moment with Omen is Reality.io is the Oracle provider, and it's a very generic platform. Basically, it crowdsources the answer for anything, right? And then you have some escalation that just, people just stake and then upstake to change the answer. In theory, though, that could go on forever, or people could throw their weight around if they had a lot of money, and so that's why also there is this arbitration element, and that's where Claros comes in. So they're sort of like the court, right? So if something is disputed on the Reality.io level, it goes to a Claros court case, and they provide kind of the final say on what the answer is. And yeah, you mentioned, Chris, like Arbitrum and like Claros, and Gerardo was also talking about how there's some, there's been a couple of hiccups just on XDAI with Claros. I guess it's not entirely clear whether Claros will port well to other scalability options that DXdao is expanding to. But I think, and maybe Gerardo, you can add to this, but I think it's worth noting that there are some plans for DXdao to actually be its own arbitrator.
Yeah, not only that, but we actually have also an alternative decentralized court system on XDAI, which I don't know the name right now, but this is something we should explore, just because I think we need to like second. Celeste. Just because I think that we need to establish the Omen brand as like a very generic, very flexible, very competitive prediction market platform, which can move fast if new ideas emerge. And that means like multiple arbitration services, multiple Oracle providers, multiple market types, multiple trading venues.
And you could imagine that in different like areas, like different places, different chains, like XDAI, maybe there are different solutions, right? And Omen could essentially integrate with the court of the land, so to speak, like if it is on different chains.
Yeah, that would make complete sense. There's usually, in traditional law, many arbitrators that you can choose from, so it fits perfectly well into that framework.
It's cool to draw that analogy. Any other questions on Omen? So we already talked a little bit about Mesa. Anything else that people wanted to ask or add on that front? I think kind of to recap there's development going on with an IDO specific new version of Mesa that will be relaunched.
I think I missed the part about the if we talked about the design or at least I think I heard someone will work on it, but who is this person? Someone new or?
Sorry, my connection was shortly lost. Seth, have you been asking for who is working on the UI UX side?
Yes.
Ah, cool. So it could be that it's Bertie. He was in the call shortly. I guess he's not here anymore. Otherwise, he could surely have introduced himself as well. But I guess he's joining for another call the next few days. So it's not sure yet that he will be working, but we are figuring out something with him. And he has, like, his background is in crypto for some years. So he has been working on Compound on the past, on synthetics as well. And yeah, we hope we can get him to build the Mesa front end.
Okay. And when you say build, it's development and design or all?
No. He's like just UI UX guy.
Okay. So design, like Figma.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you. Now, should we talk Swapper?
Yes.
So
that's ready to go. Go for it.
We're moving forward. Federico's been busy doing the farming interface. The toughest part is to create a new farm screen, which is actually the one where I'm most excited of. We are in the finishing stages there, so we'll probably see some. I would say we would see some testnet version maybe next week. Hopefully, I can't promise that. And on governance side, we are also going forward there, and I think the focus is still the farming, but we are moving on both sides. And the audit also was done this week. Maybe Federico or John, you can talk more about that.
I can let Federico speak to it if you'd like, or happy to just speak to it.
Yeah, no, the audit, we got the results basically, and we had a couple minor things. Should already have fixed them. The minor things, well, moderate more than minor. The minor things I still have to fix. And I would like to add that yesterday I started working on basically deploying Swapper to Arbitrum. I made good progress with it. I should have deployed basically the core contracts, the periphery contracts, the token registry which is needed, and I was working on the front end, which already works. It interfaces with Arbitrum. But I tried to perform basically to add liquidity to a pair and to create a pair, but it does not work. Still have to check out why. And that's it basically. Yeah.
Awesome. And also add that the ERC20 guild contracts, which are going to be used for the governance aspects of setting fees on Nico, I'm just going to mute you really quick here. Okay. Yeah, the ERC20 guild contracts, which are slated to be used in Swapper for LP governance of the fees, as well as for other potential use cases, such as like a DXD guild, where the DXD voters would have an allocated amount of reputation and be able to basically vote just like rep holders via this guild. Like, these contracts are now under audit, and that audit should be complete middle of next week. So yeah, we'll see that. So we're moving along basically on all these fronts, and it's pretty great. Federico's been busy.
We haven't even. We even moved forward with more stuff. So I don't know if you talked about the DX Trust. I've been helping Augusto on DX Trust design, or sorry, it's not design. It's just adding new features, fixing up some stuff. We added a design where you could swap instead of just buying from the curve. So DX Trust is the place where you can go buy DXD, and it mints, and money goes to Treasury. So right now, obviously, people go buy on the secondary market. So we either had the choice to say, hey, it's cheaper elsewhere and link, or we actually implement Swapper into the interface. And we chose that path, and I added that design, and August is going to build that. And we also added more price points to the curve where you can see both sell price, buy price, sell price, and market price in the same view. And I think it's going to be better.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's something that had been mentioned. When I guess the curve has not been super active, but when there was a lot of buying happening on the curve, there were points where people would be buying even on Uniswap. It basically would go both ways. Like sometimes people were buying on Uniswap, and arbitrageurs would be buying off the curve and like selling into Uniswap, or it would be maybe the other way around, where people were buying on the curve when they really should have been buying on a Uniswap because the market price was lower. So having that direct integration basically solves these problems. Of course, the plan is to pause the curve, so maybe it makes less of a difference, but it would still be cool to have that integration.
Yeah, I mean it's a good step forward. Also, even if we pause the curve, the DXtrust site has a purpose. It shows where the curve price is, it shows the sell price, and it shows market price. It has a use, even though the curve will be paused.
Yeah, totally. We probably should find some way to display or indicate when it's paused as well, right? I don't know if you guys had talked about that.
No, but I planned it in my head at least. I'm waiting to know the details, and like if we it depends on how we go about that, but that's why I wanted to add all the prices in one view instead of having to click somewhere else to see the market price, because probably people land on the DXtrust site and they can't buy from the curve, but I don't want that to be a stopper. Like you can go swap from Swapper. It will be good.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's like another thing also. Now, like this is the first step. I started working on the DX Trust design, which was made by Geronimo. I updated it a little bit, so maybe me and Geronimo can sync on that. We'll probably use the same design to do DX vote, which Augusto also is gonna be voting on. And this is the next thing I'm gonna be working on with him.
I have a quick question about DXtrust. Is there like thoughts of combining this with the IDO platform of whatever Mesa will be?
I mean, I thought about it, but it maybe it doesn't make 100% sense because the curve does more than just give out a token, right? Like you can sell back to the curve. And maybe we'll confuse people even more because this is pretty complicated to explain. But I thought about it when I started designing it.
There has been talk about in the Mesa IDO product platform suite of options to have one option for projects to do a very similar style bonding curve token sale like DXdao did with DXD. So that would be like an option in the Mesa IDO platform.
That would be cool. I mean, if we had those plugins or how we call them, obviously we would add DXdao to that.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. You don't
Go ahead.
Yeah. Also, like from my perspective, like it makes total sense. Like if we want to build it as an open extendable system with different kind of sales mechanisms, like the bonding curve could be just one of the available modules that projects can use to fund capital. So it would fit perfectly in the idea there.
Yeah, kind of like what I'm thinking about this is that, because this is done like through DXtrust, and because there needs to be a sort of a DAO or controlled address, we're actually incentivizing more responsible fundraising from like all aspects. So yeah, just a thought.
Just thinking about the ERC20 guild and kind of governance, and then also Swapper. I think the thing that's interesting with the ERC20 guild is that it's any ERC20. And so I wonder if when we're trying to do the DXD guild, whether we could either initially just use the LP token for the DXD ETH pool on Swapper. And that would be a way of like giving, participating in governance. If you wanted to do that, you would actually be like staking basically your DXD in the Swapper pool. Because I think like staking DXD is good. I guess that takes it off the market, but we kind of want to like put those things to use. And maybe we could do that for different Swapper pools, but perhaps that would be a way of like, encourage getting DXD holders that want to participate in governance by also contributing to the products.
I think it is. Oh, go ahead, Sid.
I remember when I added voting on Swapper, not only for pools. So that was one of like my idea is like if we allow people to be able to vote on like we are already calling it governance, and it's about pool fees, but I said why not just let them be able to vote on signal stuff on Swapper with the LP token, not with the DXD token. On anything, actually, it's not only DXD stuff. I don't know if that's the same thing.
I guess I'm thinking. I think that's from like the Swapper angle. I guess I'm thinking from like the governance DXD guild angle. Like we are kind of planning to introduce some governance to DXD holders by like having them lock up DXD in the contract. And I guess I'm saying like, shouldn't we rather have them put that DXD in Swapper and then lock it up in the contract? So wherever way they're participating would be that way, in addition to what you're kind of doing with the Swapper stuff. But I think more from like the perspective of like DXdao governance in including DXD holders.
Yeah, this was something that Chris and I were talking about earlier this week as a possibility, because first of all, it attracts DXD to Swapper, which is great. So there's obviously a great benefit for not only the DAO, but also DXD holders to participate in Swapper. But instead of just having the DXD sit in a vesting contract somewhere, why not have Swapper essentially be the source of the vesting contract, essentially? So it's not just sitting somewhere, it's actually getting some sort of like a liquidity providing aspect to it, which is beneficial for both, the DAO and for the liquidity providers. And it might resolve some of our issues as to maybe attract it's an economic as well as a governance perspective choice, like Chris was saying.
I would think at the very least you would not want DXD voting to be competing with using DXD in DXdao's products, right? So I think another way you could do it is very similar to what you guys were saying, but you could also simply like enable multiple options. Basically, if it's just DXD, you can vote with it. If it's DXD locked up in Swapper, you can vote for it. And maybe in the future we add other things, like if it's locked up in Omen or whatever, right? I would think we would at least want to favor DXdao products over, say, Uniswap, right? Like Swapper LPs should be able to vote, but Uniswap LPs maybe not, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a great idea in general. Just like why not let see what actually incentivizes liquidity provider, like what incentivizes DXD holders. Just give them the options and let's see where the chips fall.
I mean, it would be cool if we added a feature to be able to put up one side of the liquidity for a pool. Like, let's say I just add DXD and I'll wait until someone else put up the ETH side, right? So we split the pool. That way you could do that by just, you could do that kind of voting. I don't know how exactly how it would work, but from my perspective, if someone wants to do governance and then they put up the risk of having the token, like let's say they are voting on something critical because the price is going down or going up, like the risk of putting up liquidity at that time will skew the voting because people maybe don't want to put up liquidity, right? There's that risk.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not sure if I would support the idea of excluding simple DXD holders. Like if you just are holding DXD and want to participate in governance, I feel like it might not be good to exclude them. But certainly including LP providers, like I think makes a ton of sense at the very least.
Right. I think it's just definitely not excluding just by holding. I completely agree with that. I just think that the one nice thing about maybe with the liquidity providing, it could work in the same way that we're talking about with governance 2.0 as part of that formula about some sort of commitment there, and playing with that formula not only as part of our our product side with liquidity providing, but also with maybe just simple governance, and then you can kind of pick your poison as far as what you want to do. Maybe you split it.
Yeah, and Zed said, like, he was talking about what single-sided liquidity with your DXD. Like, I mean, even if you were providing liquidity in a DXD pool and you had provided both tokens, like, it's a little extra math, but we should be able to, at least, if not the current version, and in a future version of the guilds, be able to like do that math to basically see how much DXD you have with your LP tokens. So if you like have, maybe you have some DXD USDC and some DXD ETH LP tokens, and you could like lock both of them up in the stake both of them in the governance contract, and the contract should be able to figure out, what the weight of DXD that you're actually holding is.
Yeah, just two quick things on this. So partly inspired by, I think, YFI in the past week, they've obviously gone through a lot of discussion and changes, but they're like shifting away from YFI staking. So for a long time, like the way that you would get rewards and fees is you would just stake your YFI, right? And so there's a lot of people that are just staking their YFI and they're getting fees for that. But they're trying to move away from that just because, again, it's like, well, if I'm just staking the YFI, like, is that really providing anything to the platform? And then second, from a product perspective, I think going forward, projects will increasingly want their governance tokens to be liquid and like somehow traded and somehow being put to work. I mean, you can see this with a lot of different projects now that are like, come and stake on a Sushi Swap pool or Uniswap pool. So I think like the way that we're building the governance onto Swapper, I think could be a real advantage as projects move away from just simple token staking and more to put those tokens to work while participating in governance.
I mean, that was the whole idea about when I did the design for, because it made sense if someone put up liquidity, they can already vote with the liquidity, but only on fees. Why not vote on more stuff? This is what I thought. I mean, obviously, maybe it's confusing to be voting on a project on like a swap service like Swapper. Maybe you could do that somewhere else, but still, I would rather have it work than
that idea. Almost positions Swapper as a governance platform for other projects, not just a liquidity providing.
But you could do it. You could do it now with Snapshot, right? You could imagine Snapshot, like setting up a Snapshot governance where you're using the LP token itself, right? And project would hopefully be drawn to Swapper because in addition to using that LP token for governance on like whatever you're wanting to do, like you could control fees on the pool itself with that same thing. Again, I think long term it'd be really cool if like we could just fold that all into one and have Swapper be that like governance platform. But yeah,
it's interesting too because we've long talked about governance as a service, but I think it's like for the most part thus far been like kind of this abstract idea without anything really tangible to offer it to back it up. And so like, but something like this, you start with the ERC20 guilds, what Zed's talking about here, I think you start to see how this actually could be something that DXdao provides.
I mean, whoever dominates this area where you can stake, you can vote on fees and on your pool, and vote for the project. If someone can do that with the same token, like there's no reason to go somewhere else. It's like, yeah, no development, no nothing, just set it up. I think for us it's I don't want to confuse people more than they are. I think for us maybe it's easier to understand all this, but yeah.
Well, I agree. I think that it is good for us to think about, because governance is such a huge issue right now with all of these DAOs, that how I think, like, for example, like what Chris was talking about with YFI, this has all just been kind of developing for them, I think, in the past week or so. So it's definitely showing a shift away from just staking and, you know, having some sort of APY yield. Not that we were even planning on doing that with our vesting, like any type of locking mechanism for our governance protocol, but it would be interesting just to make the communication that, you know, we have this ecosystem where you can make your DXD work for you through our products. So we're not even, you know, it's another kind of interesting thing. We're not saying, hey, go to this other platform that has nothing to do with the DAO. We're saying, hey, you can literally put your tokens within our ecosystem and you get governance through that.
Yeah, I think it's all super exciting stuff, and maybe a good transition into talking about the biz dev call and kind of governance calls from this week. Elon.
Hooray! Yeah, so in this week we had actually a couple of introductions by Pavel and Ali, which, yeah, it seems like we're getting traction. I think Martin is, like I'm seeing Martin tweeting a lot about needing people to join, devs to join DXdao, which is great. We had an OKR, kind of like further work with Venki, which I also think this is a great initiative, and it's really coming along fairly nicely. Hopefully, yeah, by the end of next week, we'll be able to have sort of a working version, and then the following week, you know, ratify that in the DAO. And we had kind of like a long discussion on Omen and the marketing of Omen with Beth. Yeah, I think on that front, there was a decision this is kind of like in the Omen realm, but there was a decision, I think, to postpone by a few days the launch of Omen on XDAI. And then with that, postpone like all the marketing efforts that's going along with it. And then at the end, we had the discussion on how does DXdao collaborate, incubate, or partner with other kind of like entrepreneurs or communities. And I think we had some great kind of insights. One of the things we talked about is figuring out like what is a minimum viable partnership with like when we have these incoming or even outgoing partnerships. And yeah, there are a few interesting opportunities coming up. I think that's it.
Nice recap. Yeah, I guess we could maybe go to the governance, Chris. A lot going on there as well.
Yeah, some things. The governance call had a discussion on community rep boost, and also like a broader discussion on how we can distribute rep more efficiently. Maybe introducing the mint burn function in the multi call, and also just figuring out how we can scale that. And then yeah, we had tons of kind of interesting proposals. The multi call proposal is still ongoing. I think it's like a week away from potentially passing, and there's some testing going on. And XDAI. I think John maybe can give an update, or John and Nico maybe give an update on that. And then we had the Treasury authorization proposal, which was submitted last week, and this would be a way of beginning to diversify the Treasury primarily into stable coins. So the goal was about 3 million in stable coins, and then there were 3 different ways to go about that. And the member balancer structure using the dev multisig, and then of course the multi-call Gnosis protocol relayer and the Gnosis protocol relayer, which is the long-term sustainable solution. So the idea is to kind of use all of those and work up to that number. And so I think that's set to pass, I think in 2 days. And so when that will pass, we'll hopefully can see some of those proposals themselves and begin to diversify there. And then there's also a discussion on funding for the Omen squad. So the Omen squad has kind of been investigating and exploring and researching how to provide liquidity on open markets and how to and providing some feedback on that. So they had done this on mainnet before, and there's some additional funding for the XDAI launch. So hopefully the goal is to have a bunch of fun markets to play with on XDAI, particularly for the Super Bowl coming up. I think in 2.5 weeks might be a popular market there. And then, the onboarding guide, we had a discussion on that. I think we're inching towards some resolution on that. There's a poll on how to structure the trial pay worker period. And then, the last kind of thing, a discussion on the call was kind of how to incorporate XDAI more into governance. This is something that I think we've been flirting around with the DXdao base on XDAI, and now it's, I think, starting to get some familiarity with people in the community, and we should, I think, be using it more and more for signal proposals, reimbursements, and other things. So there's some ideas, I think, to kind of continue to experiment with that, which I think will be good. And as Omen obviously moves on XDAI, that'll provide a nice impetus to that. So I think that was it.
Very solid recap. A lot going on in Alchemy and the governance proposals. If you haven't looked recently, it's definitely should take a look. And exciting stuff, especially with the multi-call and the Treasury diversification. And yes, like we are doing some testing on XDAI. Discovered a small issue with Alchemy that Nico actually fixed yesterday. It was providing a form validation error for if you put a 0 address in, and sometimes you actually want to put the 0 address in, depending on what you're doing. So Nico already submitted a fix to that, and we're going to resume some more testing today too. So follow along. I'll make sure to provide updates in the DAO Stack channel, and anybody else who's doing testing as well should do that.
Just one more thing I remembered. We also talked about, speaking of governance of the servers earlier, we also talked a little bit about DMM and participating more in that governance system. So the multi-call scheme, I think, will help with the ability for DXdao to delegate its DMM voting rights to a specific address. So I think we'll do that to the multi-sig and then figure out how to how we'll get signal on that. And so there's a post in the forum from Sky on that, but I think that's another exciting development about expanding the governance capabilities.
Totally, great work by Sky there. Anything else? What else? Any other points here as we are getting towards the end?
I think just related to that, like a bigger approach or around that topic is that DXdao has a goal to do, get like work with a lot of different projects and and governance related to those projects, and in addition to that, like make partnership and like, business related deals like to leverage DXDAO's products, and those conversations in general become much easier and more valuable, especially when DXdao is an active participant in that project's governance. So even though it is a bit of work, like figuring this out, I think is important because it will lead to like stronger and bigger and more interactive relationships which will then benefit DXdao products and DXD holders. So that's why it's like a key piece to the puzzle, I think.
And just like thinking about if we can figure out a way to provide like governance decisions in a decentralized way for the DMM and DXdao's treasury, we could use that same system, whether, maybe it's something a little bit broader than like a multi-sig, thinking about maybe even creating like the guild structure for that. That same thing could be applied to Uniswap, Compound, and I think some other systems that have that. And so not just like the ability to get signal and come to reach consensus, but even like the stack itself. So yeah, I think it's a good place for us to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this kind of diplomacy between DAOs becomes really important in projects. One other thing I forgot to, or just neglected to mention earlier, is we are working on this kind of payroll system. BlockRocket was a little bit slow to reply, but it seems they're moving on getting that kind of estimated. So would be great. I think that could really help minimize the costs for worker proposals, and also kind of just make it a lot easier and more transparent for the community as well. So hopefully some good stuff coming there as well. Any other points that we should mention before we close?
Yes. Also, now you mentioned external teams working. I'm in contact with 2 bureaus that works with blockchain projects, and we are talking with them about creating landing pages. So first of all, our DXD website, and also if each of our products should have a landing page each. So that's something going on right now.
Yeah, that's great. Like I think, go ahead.
No, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think in general, that there's a preference for these full-time community members and workers to be doing work, but I think there are definitely opportunities where we can kind of boost things and kind of augment what we're doing by pulling in service providers to help out here and there.
I think some things maybe is like we can redo them later internally. We don't need to go all in on all this stuff, but I think short term it's worth it, and also we need to be attractive in this market because we have a bull market. I think our brand is something we need to keep developing. I don't think we have done anything since Geronimo actually created it for the bonding curve period. So I think just as long as we keep going forward, and this is a good step to start.
Yeah, and I think often there's opportunities to bring in expertise, for certain things in certain areas. I think like auditing is a great example. Like some of this, I think.
I learned something actually. Creating websites, it's super simple, but for some reason, on every project I've been to, it's always something that gets complicated, and it takes more time and more money than it would have if you just did it externally. I think actually it's worth it to do it if you don't have people for it. But if you do, then yeah.
And I think there's an argument that like for something like a landing page, the outside perspective is actually valuable, right? Because we forget what it's like to look in from the outside and not have all the context that we do, right? So in some ways we're like the worst people to like actually like put the content out to convey the messages, because we forget like what all the things that we've learned along the way and how much more we know.
Sure.
But yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think this is great.
And I'll add one small thing, that next week on Tuesday, after the Governance 2.0 call, we're having basically an alchemy working group, which we started outlining, what are the things that we're going to talk there. But I think this is a great opportunity to actually drive and converge on basically the future of alchemy. So come along. There's a post on DAO Talk.
That's cool. Yeah, I think governance 2.0 kind of getting close to the point of having some clear requirements. And I think that, yeah, some convergence would be great there to see these requirements being met by future plans for Alchemy. All right, anything else? If not, we can wrap up right on time.
Perfect.
Okay, guys. Have a good one.
All right. Have a good day.